Imagine opening your banking app right now, scrolling past your credit cards and looking directly at your savings account balance. For a lot of people, the ultimate dream is to see that number grow as high as possible. You imagine the feeling of seeing $50,000, $100,000, or even $200,000 just sitting there, completely safe and completely untouched. It feels like the ultimate shield against the world. You think to yourself, if I can just get my bank balance to that level, I will finally be safe and I will have finally made it. But what if I told you that keeping that much cash in a traditional bank account is actually one of the most expensive financial mistakes you could ever make? What if that mountain of cash isn't a shield protecting your future, but a slow-burning fire that is quietly destroying your hard-earned wealth every single day? Most people approach personal finance with a very basic, survival-driven mindset. We're taught from a young age to save our money, put it in the bank, and don't touch it. And up to a certain point, that is excellent advice. But there's a hidden psychological and mathematical tipping point where saving turns into hoarding and where security turns into stagnation. There is a precise threshold where your money stops working for you and actively starts working against you. And for the vast majority of people, that maximum threshold is $50,000. I want you to think about why we hold on to cash in the first place. It comes down to a deep, primal human need for certainty. When we look at a volatile world where jobs can be automated, economies can shift, and unexpected expenses can strike at any moment, cash feels like the only thing we can control. It is tangible, it is liquid, and it is right there when you log into your account. This is what psychologists call the illusion of absolute security. We mistake the stability of the number in our account for the actual stability of our purchasing power. But the reality is that a standard bank account is not a vault designed to preserve your wealth. It is a transactional holding pen. When you keep more than $50,000 in a standard bank account, you are essentially paying a massive, invisible tax for an emotional safety blanket. Let's look at the cold, hard math of what is actually happening behind the scenes. Traditional banks are designed to pay you next to nothing in interest. Meanwhile, the real-world cost of living, the price of groceries, healthcare, housing, and insurance, is constantly marching upward. If your money is growing at a fraction of a percent, while the world around you is getting 3, 4, or 5% more expensive every year, your money is literally evaporating. You aren't losing the physical dollars, but you are losing what those dollars can buy. If you have $100,000 sitting in a traditional savings account for a decade, you might still see 6 figures on your screen, but the actual life you can buy with that money will have shrunk by a staggering amount. You are effectively working hundreds of hours for free just to hand that value back to inflation. Financial professionals often refer to this phenomenon as lazy money. It is cash that has completely lost its purpose. When you are building up your first few $1,000s, that money has a very active, heroic job. It is protecting you from eviction, keeping the lights on, and ensuring that a broken car doesn't derail your entire life. That cash is working hard. But once you cross that $50,000 mark, the role of that money completely changes. For almost any typical household, $50,000 is more than enough to handle 3 to 6 months of full living expenses, cover a major medical deductible, and pay for an emergency home repair all at the same time. It represents the absolute ceiling of practical utility for cash. Every single dollar you accumulate above that amount is no longer working as a safety net. It is just sitting on the bench, completely idle, while the rest of the economic world moves forward without it. There's also a fascinating cognitive bias that takes over when you keep too much money in a bank account, and it is known as loss aversion. Human beings are wired to feel the pain of a loss twice as intensely as the joy of a gain. When you watch your bank balance climb to a high number, your brain becomes fiercely protective of that specific visual milestone. You become addicted to the comfort of that number. Suddenly, the idea of moving money out of that account, even if it is to buy a piece of real estate, invest in the stock market, or fund a business, feels terrifying. You look at the potential investment and think, what if I lose it? But you completely ignore the fact that by leaving it in the bank, you are guaranteed to lose its value over time. Your desire to protect the number on your screen blinds you to the fact that you are actively paralyzing your financial growth. The cash stops being a tool that serves your life, and you start living your life to serve the cash. Consider the profound difference between a saver identity and an allocator identity. A A saver thinks exclusively in terms of accumulation. They measure their financial health by the size of their pile. An allocator, on the other hand, thinks in terms of velocity and efficiency. They view money as a worker that needs to be deployed to the right job. Wealthy individuals do not keep massive hoards of cash sitting in regular bank accounts. They understand that cash is an asset that depreciates by design. Instead, they keep their wealth tied up in productive assets, things that produce cash flow, things that appreciate, and things that naturally outpace the rising cost of living. They keep exactly what they need to facilitate their lifestyle and handle emergencies, and every other dollar is immediately sent out to work. When you break free from the trap of hoarding cash, your entire relationship with wealth transforms. Imagine the psychological shift that happens when you stop measuring your security by a stagnant bank balance and start measuring it by your financial ecosystem. If you have $50,000 in cash, you have peace of mind. If you have another $50,000 invested in low-cost index funds, you have an engine that is quietly compounding and buying back your future time. If you have money invested in your own skills, you have increased your lifetime earning potential. You move from playing a game of pure defense to playing a balanced game of defense and offense. Let's talk about what happens practically when you decide to draw a hard line at $50,000. First, it forces you to become intentional. When your bank account starts creeping past that number, it acts as a trigger. It forces you to sit down and ask yourself, what is the best next step for this wealth? It prevents you from falling into financial complacency. Second, it eliminates the hidden opportunity cost that keeps people stuck in the middle class. The biggest wealth killer isn't bad investments. It is the investments that were never made because the money was sitting dead in a checking account. Think about two different people with the exact same income. The first person works incredibly hard, saves $150,000, and leaves it all in a standard bank account for 20 years because they are terrified of the market. The second person keeps $50,000 for total peace of mind and systematically invests the other $100,000 into the broader economy. Over 20 years, the first person's wealth will have been severely eroded by inflation, leaving them with far less purchasing power than they started with. The second person's invested capital will have likely multiplied several times over, creating a massive financial cushion that can actually fund a retirement. They both worked the same hours, they both earned the same salary, and they both practiced discipline. But one understood the true purpose of cash, while the other fell victim to its illusion. If you currently have a balance that is climbing past that comfort zone, do not view it as a reason to panic, but view it as an incredible opportunity to evolve. Start shifting your mindset from a collector of currency to an investor in assets. Define exactly what your true emergency number is, cap your cash account at that specific limit, and give the rest of your money a real job. True financial freedom isn't about holding on to a massive pile of paper. It is about building a system that grows, protects, and sustains your life without requiring you to trade every single hour of your time for it. Step away from the false comfort of an oversized bank account and start building actual, enduring wealth.